What if you came home one night and found your spouse brutally murdered in your own house? What if the killer was someone you knew and trusted? And what if you were the one who hired him to do it? This is the shocking story of Kelley Clayton, a young mother of two who was bludgeoned to death by a hitman hired by her own husband, Thomas. In this video, we will uncover the truth behind this gruesome murder-for-hire plot that rocked a small town in New York and left two children without their mother. Hello everyone, and welcome to True Crime Stories, where we bring you the most fascinating and disturbing cases of real-life crime. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified of our latest videos. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Today, we are going to talk about the case of Kelley Clayton, a 35-year-old woman who was killed in her home in Caton, New York, on September 28, 2015. Her husband, Thomas Clayton, a former professional hockey player, claimed that he found her body after returning from a poker night with his friends. He said that she was attacked by a robber who broke into their house. But the police soon discovered that it was not a random act of violence, but a carefully planned murder scheme orchestrated by Thomas himself. Today, we are going to talk about the case of Kelley Clayton, a 35-year-old woman who was killed in her home in Caton, New York, on September 28, 2015. Her husband, Thomas Clayton, a former professional hockey player, claimed that he found her body after returning from a poker night with his friends. He said that she was attacked by a robber who broke into their house. But the police soon discovered that it was not a random act of violence, but a carefully planned murder scheme orchestrated by Thomas himself. But the plan unraveled quickly when the police found several clues that linked Thomas and Michael to the crime. They also learned that Thomas had a motive to kill Kelley. He was unhappy in his marriage and wanted to get rid of her. He was also having multiple affairs and was afraid that Kelley would find out and divorce him. He thought that killing her would be easier than divorcing her and losing his money and his kids. The case went to trial in 2017 and both Thomas and Michael were found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Kelley's family and friends were devastated by her loss and outraged by Thomas' betrayal. They remembered Kelley as a beautiful, loving, and caring person who adored her children and had a bright future ahead of her. They also vowed to keep her memory alive and to raise her kids with love and support. In this video, we will dive deeper into the details of this case and explore how Thomas and Michael plotted and executed the murder, how the police cracked the case, and how Kelley's loved ones coped with the tragedy. We will also show you some exclusive footage and interviews from the investigation and the trial. So stay tuned and get ready for a chilling and heartbreaking story of lies, crimes, and betrayal. The night of September 28, 2015, seemed like any other night for Kelley Clayton and her two children, Charlie and Colin. They were at their home in Caton, a small town in upstate New York, surrounded by woods and fields. Kelley had put her kids to bed and was getting ready to sleep herself. Her husband, Thomas, was out with his friends for a poker night. He had left around 9 p.m. and said he would be back by midnight. But around 12:30 a.m., Thomas called 911 in a panic. He said he had just returned home and found his wife dead on the kitchen floor. He said she was covered in blood and had been attacked by a robber. He also said his daughter, Charlie, who was 7 years old at the time, had seen the intruder and was hiding upstairs. He begged the operator to send help as soon as possible. The police and the paramedics arrived at the scene shortly after. They found Kelley's lifeless body in the kitchen, with severe injuries to her head and face. She had been bludgeoned with a heavy object, later identified as a maul, a tool used for splitting wood. She had also tried to fight back and escape, as there were signs of a struggle in the upstairs bedroom and the staircase. She had suffered multiple fractures, lacerations, and contusions. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The police also found Charlie and Colin, who were unharmed but traumatized. Charlie told the police that she had heard a loud noise downstairs and went to check on her mom. She saw a man hitting her mom with a big stick. She said the man was wearing a yellow shirt and had a beard. She ran back to her room and hid under the bed with her brother, who was 2 years old at the time. She said she was scared and didn't know what to do. Thomas was taken to the police station for questioning. He told the police that he had been at his friend's house for poker night and had left around midnight. He said he had no idea who would want to hurt his wife or why. He said they had a happy marriage and a good life. He said he loved his wife and his kids. He said he was devastated by what had happened, but the police were not convinced by his story. They noticed that he had scratches on his arms and legs, which he said were from playing hockey. They also noticed that he seemed calm and emotionless despite the horrific situation. They also found some inconsistencies and contradictions in his statements. They decided to dig deeper into his background and his relationship with Kelley. As the police investigated the murder of Kelley Clayton, they discovered a shocking web of lies, secrets, and betrayal that led them to the truth. They found out that Thomas Clayton was not the loving husband and father he claimed to be. He was, in fact, a cold-blooded killer who had hired a hitman to kill his wife and make it look like a robbery. The hitman was Michael Beard, a former employee of Thomas. Thomas owned a company called ServPro, which provided fire and water damage restoration services. Michael had worked for Thomas for about a year, but was fired in September 2015, just weeks before the murder. Thomas had accused him of stealing gas from the company's trucks and had threatened to press charges against him. But Thomas had another reason to fire Michael. He wanted to use him as a pawn in his sinister plan to get rid of his wife. Thomas had offered Michael $10,000 to kill Kelley and stage the crime scene. He had given him a key to the house and a maul to use as the murder weapon. He had also instructed him to wear a yellow shirt and a fake beard to match the description of a suspect in a recent burglary in the area. He had told him to wait until he left for poker night and then sneak into the house and kill Kelley while she was sleeping. Michael had agreed to the deal and had carried out the brutal attack on Kelley. He had followed Thomas' instructions and had tried to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. He had ransacked the bedroom and the kitchen and had taken some items from the house, such as a laptop, a safe, and some jewelry. He had also left behind some clues that would later incriminate him, such as his fingerprints, his DNA, and his cell phone. The police were able to trace Michael's phone and found it near a pond where he had thrown it after the murder. They also found the maul, the yellow shirt, and the fake beard in the same area. They arrested Michael and confronted him with the evidence. Michael initially denied any involvement in the murder, but later confessed and implicated Thomas as the mastermind behind the plot. The police also learned that Thomas had a motive to kill Kelley. He was unhappy in his marriage and wanted to get rid of her. He was also having multiple affairs and was afraid that Kelley would find out and divorce him. He thought that killing her would be easier than divorcing her and losing his money and his kids. The police also found a key witness who could corroborate Michael's confession. He was Luke Tetrol, a friend and colleague of Thomas. Luke had gone to the Clayton's house on September 26, 2015, 2 days before the murder, to pick up a four-wheeler for a weekend event. He had seen Thomas and Michael talking in the garage and had overheard Thomas telling Michael to take care of it. He had also seen Thomas giving Michael a key and a piece of paper with some instructions. He had not realized what they were talking about until he heard about the murder. The police had enough evidence to arrest Thomas and charge him with first-degree murder. They also charged Michael with the same crime. They believed that they had cracked the case and had brought justice to Kelley and her family. The trial of Thomas Clayton and Michael Beard began in January 2017, more than a year after the murder of Kelley Clayton. The prosecution presented a strong case against the two defendants, based on the physical evidence, the phone records, the confessions, and the testimonies of the witnesses. They argued that Thomas and Michael had conspired to kill Kelley in a cold-blooded and premeditated manner, and that they deserved the maximum penalty for their crime. The defense tried to cast doubt on the prosecution's case by challenging the credibility of the evidence, the motives of the witnesses, and the validity of the confessions. They claimed that Thomas and Michael were innocent and that they had been framed by someone else. They suggested that Kelley had been killed by a real robber who had taken advantage of Thomas' plan to scare her. They also suggested that Michael had been coerced into confessing by the police and that Luke had lied to get a plea deal for his own crimes. The trial lasted for 6 weeks and attracted a lot of media attention and public interest. The jury heard from more than 50 witnesses and saw more than 300 exhibits. They'd also heard from Kelley's family and friends, who remembered her as a beautiful, loving, and caring person, who adored her children and had a bright future ahead of her. They also heard from Thomas' family and friends, who portrayed him as a good man, who was devoted to his wife and his kids, and who had no reason to kill her. The jury deliberated for more than 40 hours and reached a unanimous verdict. They found Thomas Clayton and Michael Beard guilty of first-degree murder. They also found them guilty of second-degree murder as an alternative charge. The judge sentenced them to life in prison without parole, the maximum sentence allowed by law. He also denied them any possibility of appeal. The verdict was welcomed by Kelley's family and friends, who felt that justice had been served. They expressed their relief and gratitude to the police, the prosecutors, and the jury for their hard work and dedication. They also expressed their sorrow and anger at Thomas for his betrayal and his cruelty. They said they would never forgive him for what he had done to Kelley and to their family. The case of Kelley Clayton's murder is a tragic and shocking example of how greed, lust, and selfishness can lead to unimaginable violence and cruelty. It also shows how the justice system can work to expose the truth and hold the perpetrators accountable for their actions. Kelley Clayton was a victim of a heinous crime that robbed her of her life and her future. She was a loving mother, a caring sister, a loyal friend, and a beautiful person. She did not deserve to die in such a brutal and senseless way. She deserved to live a happy and fulfilling life with her children and her family. Thomas Clayton and Michael Beard were the orchestrators and the executors of the murder plot. They were motivated by money, power, and sex. They showed no remorse or empathy for their actions. They tried to escape justice by lying and manipulating the evidence. They failed to realize the consequences of their actions and the impact they had on the lives of others. The police, the prosecutors, and the jury were the heroes of the case. They worked tirelessly and diligently to uncover the truth and to bring justice to Kelley and her family. They followed the clues, the evidence, and the testimonies. They faced the challenges, the obstacles, and the doubts. They proved that Thomas and Michael were guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and that they deserved to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Kelley's children, Charlie and Cullen, were the survivors of the case. They witnessed the horror of their mother's murder and the aftermath of their father's arrest. They lost both of their parents in a matter of days. They had to cope with the trauma, the grief, and the confusion. They had to start a new life with their aunt and uncle, who took them in and raised them as their own. The community, the friends, and the family were the supporters of the case. They rallied around Kelley and her children. They'd offered their help, their comfort, and their love. They organized fundraisers, vigils, and memorials. They honored Kelley's memory and legacy. They also helped Charlie and Cullen heal and grow. The case of Kelley Clayton's murder is a story of evil and good, of darkness and light, of tragedy and hope. It is a story that reminds us of the value of life and the importance of justice. It is a story that teaches us to cherish our loved ones and to stand up for what is right. It is a story that we should never forget. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.